Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Bruna Canto. I'm the Director for Latin America at FirstPathway Partners. We are a regional center, which means that we're authorized by USCIS, by the Immigration Department, to offer EB-5 projects, investment projects. What is EB-5? So it's a program created by the US Immigration Department since 1990. Okay, so over 30 years that this program exists. So basically what the program says is that any foreigner that invests $800,000 in specific investments in the United States that creates 10 jobs is able to get the green card for the family. So including husband or wife and all kids unmarried under 21 years old. Okay, so this is a passive investment. It's not that the investor is actually going to open their own company. This is what the regional center does. So we offer the projects that qualify for this program. And these projects, there are two investment amounts. So the investment amount that I mentioned for $800,000, they have to be in certain regions of the United States. So either rural areas, high unemployment areas, or it has to be an infrastructure project. Okay, so most EB-5 investors want to apply at the lower amount at $800,000. But there is also, if the investment is not in any of these three regions, the amount is $1,050,000. Although it's called the EB-5 visa, it's the green card, so it's permanent residence straight away once it's approved. Valid for 2 years initially, so it's a conditional green card, and then after that is the permanent green card for 10 years. And just like any green card, anyone is able to apply for citizenship after 5 years. So the process, it's pretty simple, I would say. You know, the hardest part is qualifying with the investment amount. You have to make a transfer of $800,000 to an escrow account that then goes to the investment in order to apply for the visa. But you don't have to have experience opening businesses. Like I said, this is a passive investment. You don't even have to live full-time in the United States. We have a lot of people that go back and forth, and you don't necessarily have to be fluent in English. So, you know, really having the investment amount and proving that it comes from legal means, that is basically the main requirements. This is the process. What I do want to mention is that we will help the investor and, you know, whoever is involved in taking care of all the steps to apply. We follow the investor during the entire process. Okay, this is a 5-year process at least, because the investment has to be in the project invested normally for 5 years. That's when the principal comes back. So you guys want to make sure that you choose a regional center that is established, that has been around for a long time. Okay, so the main benefits of the EB-5, it's a straight way to the green card. So unlike any other visas that are like at the F1 student visa, you can be in the United States studying your entire life and you're never going to get the green card. And then, like I said, it's also, it's a choice, a possibility to apply for citizenship after 5 years. And then it's something that's going to it's going to pass through generations. Okay, so it's an investment that, you know, your grandkids, your great grandkids, they can, you know, obtain also their U.S. citizenship through this one investment.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephania Bertoni Norris, and I am a senior associate at Fragaman. Fragaman is the leading provider of immigration and global mobility around the world. Principally, as Bruna had mentioned, the EB-5 program has been around since the 1990s. The main aspects of the EB-5 and why it was created was to fill a need for the United States and to benefit the United States. Mainly, it came during a time where there was high unemployment and the government wanted a way to stimulate the economy by foreign investment into the United States economy, as well as the ability to create jobs. So with the EB-5 program, it's what we call an employment-based residence application, but unlike other employment-based residence processes, it's not tied to a company's sponsorship, which I think is very important here. even though it's employment-based, it's not necessarily tied to company sponsorship. So the two main requirements for EB-5 are the capital investment, the monies that the investor needs to invest into the U.S. business, and then the job creation requirements, which we'll go into more detail throughout this presentation. How much money do I need to invest in order to obtain the green card? And so the answer to that really is it depends. The normal amount is what would be $1,050,000 that needs to be invested into a U.S. business. But I would say that the majority of EB-5 is done at the lower threshold, which is the $800,000, the $800,000 mark. In order to be able to qualify for the $800,000, the project or the business needs to be located in what we call a TEA area, or a targeted employment area. Targeted employment areas, as Bruna had mentioned, there are two types. We have rural, which basically means that it's outside of a metropolitan city or an area that has less than 20,000 inhabitants, or the other targeted employment area, which would be high unemployment. That's an area where the project is located in an area that has above average unemployment. And in fact, it's actually 150% the national average. If a project or a business is located in that, you would be able to benefit from making the minimum investment of $800,000. And as Bruna had mentioned, the majority of the projects that are in the EB-5 business and in the EB-5 industry are located within either a rural TEA or a high unemployment TEA. So the next important consideration for the capital investment, and I think this is where the immigration lawyer plays a really, really big role with our clients, is the source of funds. So what does source of funds means? It means that all the monies that are being invested, those $800,000 or $1,050,000 that are being invested into the project, have to have come from lawful sources. And so our job as the immigration attorney is to strategize with our clients before they make that investment into the business to make sure that those $800,000 have been obtained from lawful sources. The older the money is, the less documentation we need to demonstrate for the root of those funds, but it's definitely something that we strategize with our clients on a day-to-day basis. The next component of the capital investment requirement, which I think is just as important, is the ability to trace those funds. So our job is to ensure that our client is able to provide documentation that accounts for every dollar, peso, reais, rupee, whatever currency you have is accounted for. We would need to trace those monies from the time that you derived those funds from the source to the time that it's actually invested into the project or goes through escrow into the project. The investment would only be made once we've cleared the source of funds and the tracing of those funds.
The actual investment is one of the last things that happen. So really the immigration attorney is going to do all of this and make sure everything is okay before any investment is made.
The next main requirement of EB-5, so we talked about capital investment and now we're talking about job creation, because the whole purpose of the EB-5 was, again, injection of capital into the economy, but also the ability to create jobs. And so there are two types of creation of jobs. We have what's called direct job creation, and which basically is, in layman's terms, what would be the equivalent of a W-2 employee for your company. And then we also have indirect jobs, which are basically ancillary jobs that are created through the creation of the particular project. Every investor has their $800,000 has to directly relate to the creation of 10 full-time American jobs. We have two types of EB-5s. We have what's called the traditional EB-5, which is direct investment, where you as the investor are investing, the $1,050,000 or the $800,000 into your business, and that is going to generate 10 full-time direct jobs. That's the traditional kind, but also the least popular. I would say that less than 5% of all EB-5s that are done in this country are done through direct EB-5 model, whereas the other 95% are done through a regional center. And one of the requirements, for example, if you were to do your own direct EB-5, is that you need to manage that project. So you have to have the ability to maintain your business, whereas when we do it through a regional center, even though that's still a requirement, it's one that the regional center takes care of for you. So you play more of a passive, like Bruna had mentioned, a passive investment. You play more of a passive role. What happens here is when you're doing a direct EB-5 into your own business, this is an even riskier process, because not only is your green card dependent on whether you are actually able to maintain your business and manage your business, but also is your investment, is your investment money still in there, or did you lose those monies? Whereas with a regional center, you have more security. Not that the regional center will ever promise you that the monies will come back, but one of the most important things that I tell my clients when they're looking to see what project they invest in is basically the track record that the regional center has. Have they been in the industry for a long time? What projects have they created? I think all of those characteristics and questions are something that need to be asked by the investor when looking at a regional center, to make sure that even though there's no promise or guarantee that your monies will be returned to you, well, in the last 15 years, this regional center created 20 jobs, and 20 major projects, and they returned the money for all of their investors, as an example. As the immigration attorney, although we will be able to point you in the right direction, we will be able to advise you on whether the project itself meets the minimum requirements from an immigration standpoint. It's really important that you as the investor do your own due diligence with regards to the project and the business, and whether this is a good opportunity and process for you. So the EB-5 process is comprised of 3 main steps. The first one is after the investment has been made, then is the immigration aspect of this process. It's the filing of the EB-5 petition. The way that it used to work before the new change in law was that the EB-5 had to be filed first. It would be processing for about 24 to 36 months. And it was only after we received an approval that you would be able to benefit from applying for permanent residence. Now, with the new laws that went into effect last year, which as Bruna had mentioned, overall, the change in law was very beneficial to investors. One of the main was the ability to file residence application at the same time as filing the I-526 EB-5 petition. This is very important because you no longer had to wait 2 to 3 years before you actually saw a benefit to live in the United States. Rather, now you can file the EB-5 petition and also at the same time file the residence application if you are in the United States under a non-immigrant status. You will have the ability to apply for an employment authorization document as well as an advance parole document, which would allow you to live in the United States, work in the United States, and be able to travel in and out of the United States at your leisure. So what that means is from the time that you apply for your EB-5 and you apply for your residence application, 2 to 3 months later, you already have an employment authorization document. And that employment authorization document is an unrestricted document, which means you can work at any company you want. And the advance parole, it's taking a little bit longer, but nonetheless, it's still coming in relatively quickly, about 8 to 9 months. So when you file the application, you need to stay put in the United States, but the moment you get your you get your advance parole, you can start traveling in and out of your country. Those documents are given for 2 years, so they have 2-year validity, but they are able to be extended indefinitely while you await your residence application. If you find yourself outside of the United States, that's a little different. The process is as the traditional process was, which was you file the 526. Once that EB-5 petition is approved, at that point you would apply directly at the U.S. consulate and embassy in your home country. So the process is the same as it was prior to the change of law. I think the most important change here is the ability to file concurrently at the same time if you find yourself in the United States. So once you get the green card, we go to the third step, which is, as Bruna had mentioned, the green card is valid for 2 years. It's a conditional green card. The reason it's a conditional green card is by the 2nd year anniversary, the government wants to make sure that monies are still in the project was created, and of course some additional requirements. And so the government makes you file a 3rd application, which is called the removal of conditions. Once the conditions are removed on that green card, you are issued what's called a 10-year green card. And as Bruna had mentioned previously, you are eligible to apply for citizenship at at the 5-year mark.
So now I'm just going to talk a little bit more about FirstPathway Partners. After you or the investor figures out that the EB-5 visa is the way to go, you have to make two decisions. So who is going to be your immigration attorney? So in this case, this is Stephania from Fragment. And where are you going to invest? So you have to choose a regional center. Okay, so we are the regional center. The regional center offers these projects, these investment projects, that the investor can choose where they want to invest. FPP was created, as I mentioned, in 2008. The owner of the company is called Robert Kraft. So, we are here to help all of you obtain your green card. There are two main things that you need to think about when you consider EB-5, because this is, there's the immigration portion and the investment portion, okay? So, you're going to be investing $800,000 to get your visa, and the goal is to get your green card and to get your money back. Okay, so this is there are two things that they are parallel and they don't have to both happen. So you can have your green card approved and not receive your money back because we can't guarantee. The program does not allow us to guarantee the return of the funds. The government doesn't want us to be selling green cards. So, there has to be some type of risk involved. It doesn't mean it's a risky investment. Okay, so you just need to make sure that you do your due diligence and work with companies, regional centers that have been around for a long time, and that way you shouldn't have any issues.
Again, always when you're selecting a regional center is you want to, even though it is, as Bruna had mentioned, at risk, you want to make it as least risky for you as possible. And so that's why you want to work with companies that have a good track record, that have had 526's approvals, that have had already, the jobs created, like Bruna had mentioned. Many of these projects, these mass scale projects have already generated the jobs, so that there's minimal risk on, not being able to get the green card or keep the green card.
But really the objective is always to, obtain the green card and your money back. And each project has, it's usually a very low return on investment. The project that we have now, just for example, it pays 3% per year. So nobody does this as an investment. There are other investments out there that obviously pay a lot more, that earn a lot more. And obviously, just like any other type of investment, the higher the return, there's usually a higher risk associated with investment. So, that return is usually not something that investors pay a lot of attention to. Really, it's more important to make sure that you invest in something solid, and it doesn't have to be in the city that you live in. You can invest in California and live here and work anywhere. And many times projects in Florida are not necessarily, the safest. So, it also has to be in certain regions, right? As you explained, to qualify for the lower amount.